That picture's incredible to me because you can just see the marks of their life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that I really love. I've only photographed maybe two domestic horses, and people will ask me, and I'll do it. I mean, I don't mind, but my passion is the scars.
Mm,
We spend so much time covering our scars and looking pretty and looking perfect and not being vulnerable. And I love the fact that these horses, the beauty in them is their scars and their life.
yeah.
So
Their authenticity. Like they can't hide. They don't know how to hide. It's just it is what it is. There are healers on this planet with the power to soften the suffering of mankind. Yet they have remained in the recesses of the world, abused, discarded, and labeled as trash. This is The Touch of a Mustang. I am your host, Shalise Clough, and I'm here to tell the story of wild horses, Mustangs, and the humans who are discovering and sharing their gifts while working to protect their well-being and preserve their spirit so this divine power won't be lost. Join us on this quest with the Wild Mustang. Tim, thanks so much for being here today.
well, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
I'm excited about this. I have to tell you, my daughter saw you on TikTok and she was like, Mom, you need to interview him. So it was really fun when I was able to reach out and here we are doing an interview. So
That's awesome. Thank you.
let's start by you just introducing yourself and how you came to be part of the Mustang world.
Well, thank you. It's quite a story because I don't know anything about horses. I really don't. As a kid, I loved them. I would watch Roy Rogers and Trigger and, just always admired horses, but was never around them. And now here I am, a wild horse photographer. Go out and follow them around and photograph them. It's really become a huge passion late in life. And I always worked in the corporate world and very gainfully employed, and through a series of events stumbled into photography, and then into the wild horse photography. It's been a life-changing experience. Grew my hair out and my beard, and
Yeah, I know. I feel like we need a before and after picture.
Lord,
Before the wild horses and after.
yeah, I've got a few, but yeah, it's just a fun. It's a passion. It's something that I really love. It's interesting that you started off saying that your daughter. One of the reasons that I started TikTok was to reach younger people. I really, there are several sides and different angles to the whole Mustang situation. And I was someone that, even, believe it or not, before my first encounter, I had no idea that there were Mustangs out in the wild. I didn't know. I didn't care. I didn't ever come across it. And when I found out about it, it just blew me away. And it's funny is on TikTok, people will say sometimes, well, everyone knows about there's wild or everyone knows. And no, people comment to me all the time. I had no idea. And I think it's so vitally important in the horse community to educate and get young people involved. I mean, there's so many in the cities, the inner cities, even in the suburbs, that just don't have a clue. They know all about pop culture, but they don't know about, our history and the history of the horses and the beauty and how amazing they are. So that's kind of where I came from, and where I am now, and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think you're right that there are people out there that don't know. Before I got my first Mustang, like I had heard the term Mustang, but I never really dove into what all that entailed. And so, even me coming from a horse background, it was still a whole new world that opened up once I started learning about it and exploring it a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. When I have an Etsy store, and you're always looking for the right words, different things, and you can only use wild horses so much. So one day I plugged in Mustang, and there were a million responses that came up, and they were all cars. That's what
Yep.
people think about, or Mustang races and shows and Mustangs, and yeah. So it's been an eye-opening, fun experience for me.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I was just reading Wild Horse Country and it was talking about how the Mustang car was named after the wild Mustang horses. And so it's interesting that now, yes, almost everybody would know what a Mustang car is, a Ford Mustang. And not everybody understands that there are still wild horses roaming around the US still today.
Yeah, yep.
So tell us a little bit about your journey from being in the corporate world to this new world of a wild horse photographer. Those are pretty extreme differences between the two.
It really is. I took up photography maybe 15 years ago. I lived just north of Nashville, and I worked in the music industry for a little bit during that, in the business side of it. And my wife is a speaker. She speaks at conferences, corporate things, and she was traveling constantly. And I needed a hobby. She was gone 4 or 5 nights a week. And so I just bought my first camera and started learning on YouTube how to take pictures. And I loved, anyone can go outside and take a picture of something. And I'm not belittling that at all. I mean, even you look at the iPhones, it's amazing the quality that people get. But I was really, really drawn to the studio, strobes and people. I remember friends saying, "Look at that tree. You should photograph that tree." I'm like, "That tree, I don't care about that tree. I want to capture someone's eyes and their smile and do things." So I really got into studio photography where you can control the light. It's all about lighting. That's what they say about photography, and it's so very true. And so I learned to control the light and work in the studio, and then doing headshots and portraits, just something that I love. And I had left the music industry and went into a corporate kind of a traveling position, back into an industry I'd worked in years ago. And, it kind of hit all of us in different ways. But when COVID hit, my job and my wife's job, we flew out of the airport every Monday and came home every Thursday or Friday, and that stopped. We had nothing. I was furloughed. All of her business, all of her bookings were just froze. It just nothing happened. And there we were in the house together, like what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And I lived for a couple of, I think maybe a year and a half, 2 years in Bozeman, Montana. And I love the West. I love Colorado, Montana, Wyoming. And I told her, I said, "Let's just pack up the car. We don't have jobs right now. Let's just go. Let's just go out to Yellowstone, and maybe we can find some bears. I'll find something to take a picture of." And we were driving in. It was 2 days from where we are. It's 2 full days. We drove into Cody, Wyoming. And she was on her phone. She's looking at things to do in Cody. And we were pulling into our hotel. And she looked at me. She goes, "Do you know there's wild horses out here?" I was like, no idea, had no idea. And so we checked into our hotel. We went out to McCulloch Peaks, and there we are. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Thank goodness I rented a really long zoom lens. And so I had that, and we spent 4 hours, couldn't find a thing. I mean, it's 120,000 acres out there. I thought it was like a zoo. You just go out and you see
Right.
and all. And sometimes it is like a zoo. Sometimes they're right there by the highway, but for us, it didn't work. So I'm no dummy. We got into town, and I found a little shack in downtown off one of the main roads, and it said Wild Horse Tours. And so I called them and made an appointment for the next day to go out on a wild horse tour. Now it was COVID, so it was this big van and just me and my wife and the guide. I mean, there was no one else. And he took us out, and it took him a good hour to find any horses at all. But we finally found some. And I don't shoot with a tripod anymore, but at that time I did. I was concerned about the length of the lens, and I had the tripod set up, and there were these 3 stallions. And the guide began to tell us, he said, these stallions, as they're in the wild, as they get older, they have to fight to stay in the herd. And eventually they get kicked out of the herd, and they have to live as bachelors. They just kind of roam and try to find a mare or find a way to find their way back in. And this one particular horse was looking at me, and he just kept walking towards us. And I've only had that happen a few times where a horse kind of seems interested and keeps walking. Now, he was pretty far away. And the guide kept telling us, "We got to back up. We got to back up. He's getting too close. We got to back up." I'm looking at this horse, an animal that I had no experience with whatsoever, no reason other than to admire them. I'm looking through this long lens on my camera, and I'm looking at this horse, and I'm thinking, I've been beat up. I've got scars. My wife hasn't kicked me out of the herd yet, but that's always a possibility.
Right.
I don't know what my future holds. I don't know. There's so much. I was at that point in life. I get a little choked up thinking about it.
Yeah. A really uncertain time, like thinking you're just out there. We're all kind of wondering what's going on. No jobs. Yeah.
yeah, it was like, what? And I'm like, I don't like this word because it's used or misused or overused or something, but identifying, I mean, I'm identifying with this horse. I'm feeling, dude, I feel you. I
Yeah.
mean, but he was free and he was out there doing his own thing. And so I snapped a few pictures, and it was just a moment. And we spent another day there taking pictures of the horses. And I got a bunch of shots, but it was going home and editing. I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to edit wildlife or a horse. And so it's kind of funny, I used all my portrait techniques that I use on people. And I began editing and playing, and I embellished the sky because it just needed something more than what there was. And I came up with this picture. People fell in love with it. I started editing more. And ever since then, we go out now. I'll share some more stories at least once, if not 2 or 3 times a year, to try to capture more pictures. I think you have that picture there.
So this is the first picture that you ever shot with that stallion coming towards you, and you're
Yeah.
just feeling the emotion of the shot. Like,
And you can see he's
I'm
just
with you.
looking right at me. And the guide had even said, "Listen, I don't know anything about horses. Okay, I think people mean well, and I think sometimes, we attribute animals with human feelings and characteristics, which I don't know if it's true. I know it's true with my dog, my golden retriever. I mean, he's
Right?
definitely half human. I love my dog,
Yeah.
Charlie, but the guide was saying, he must smell something on you. They can smell testosterone, they can eat, because this horse just kept walking steadily towards us. And this was the picture that started it all.
Yeah.
Again, I did embellish the sky. I want a full disclosure. It was not nearly that magnificent, but that's the shot that started it all.
Yeah. That's a great one. And so, where did that go from there where you're doing this? Because basically, who knows what else to do? The world's shut down right now, to where now you're sharing this consistently, doing it often.
I started sharing it on Facebook and Instagram, and just trying to figure out what the future would hold. And the time came around to the next year. If I can share that story of
Yeah.
what happened the following year, almost to the day, we went back, and that year we decided we wanted to stay out. We didn't want to go into a hotel every night. My wife is a trooper. My wife is an amazing woman.
Yeah, she must be pretty awesome. And just be like, all right, let's go track wild horses.
We have a SUV. It's a Volkswagen Atlas, and we bought an air mattress that was custom fit for the back.
Oh, cool.
And we thought, let's just stay out there. Actually, the second trip, no, we didn't do that. That was later trips. We actually bought a tent. Went to Walmart, bought a tent. We pitched a tent out on this flat. It was dirt area.
This is the second time you guys went?
Yeah, yeah.
Is
We
this
went.
also in Wyoming?
Yep, same place, same different
Okay.
location within it, but same place in
Uh huh.
McCoy Peaks. And so we drove 2 days, and we found this spot, and we set up the tent. And I was getting, I mean, when it gets late there in the afternoon, it's like 7 o'clock. Your sun's, because it's light for a long time out there in the summer. So I don't really know what time it was, but I told my wife Tammy, I said, "Babe, let's just chill, just relax. We've been driving for 2 days straight." And she's like, "No, no, no, we got to go out and find horses. Let's go." So it's like, okay. So we jumped back in the car and we took off. And she spotted 3 horses again, off in a distance. And it was the strangest thing. I'll show you the pictures here in just a minute. But we pulled over, parked the vehicle, and I grabbed my camera. We started walking up this hill to get closer. They were just a speck off in the distance. And as we got closer, and when I mean close, I mean they say you should stay 100 feet away from them. We were farther than that. I mean, they
Yeah.
were farther, and I started just zeroing in and taking some shots. And my wife was videoing on her iPhone, and these 3 horses, they were on this hill, and they're separate, and they're just eating. In the spring with these wild horses, when there's something to eat, they're going to eat. And it can make for a very boring time because they don't, as long as they feel safe, they're going to keep eating.
Right.
This one horse raised his head and looked at us. And then the other 2 raised their heads and looked, and they started kind of whinnying. and they kind of came together. The three came together, and they started. It was the weirdest thing. I'm telling you, they started. I don't want to say running, but kind of trotting in our direction. It was really weird, and I remember thinking, what are we going to do? I mean, they're not going to come right up to us, but they literally came right by us, and they stopped and they posed, and they were rubbing their necks and kicking up dirt and whinnying. I mean, they just put on a little show, these three. And if you will show the next picture, people can see this sometimes. That was one of the horses that we came. This was the second trip. You can see it's getting dark. The sky
It's
was
kind of
turning a bit of
dusk.
purple, and there were some clouds in some other directions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, look at this beautiful horse coming to greet us. And
Yeah.
the reality that I didn't realize until later when I zoomed in on the pictures, if you go back to the previous picture, I'm sorry to have you go back and
No,
forth.
you're good. You're good.
What makes this picture or this horse so identifiable is he's got notches in his ears. Now,
Oh.
for the longest time, I assumed must have been in a fight. I mean, because they're so scarred up from the fighting. There's so much
Mm-hmm.
fighting that happens. And I later learned from someone who knew quite well the area. They said no, it was actually frostbite. And
Yeah.
so this horse's name on the range was Hickory. I named this piece the Warrior because to me, I didn't know his name. It's just the Warrior. So if you go to the next picture again, back to the other one,
Mm-hmm.
you can't zoom in there, but you can trust me. Go to my store or my website. Same exact notches on that
Yeah,
horse.
you can see the ears a little bit.
It was the same horse 1 year later.
Wow.
Hickory, again, the Warrior, looking at me, and I'm like, it was almost like he was saying, you know what, you made it this year, and so did I. And
Mm.
it was an amazing experience. And so he just came down, started. You could show some of the other pictures. This was this the horse on the left is his name. His name was Medicine Hat, and unfortunately, Medicine Hat passed away a couple years ago.
Mm.
And then Hickory, and then if you do the next one, another favorite of mine, that is a Chaco in the front and Hickory in the back. I didn't
Oh,
know these
wow.
names at the time. I've learned the names over.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see how they were kind of just posing for us. They were just
Yeah.
comfortable and got closer, and we just had an amazing experience.
Yeah. I mean, that picture's incredible to me because you can just see the marks of their life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that I really love. I've only photographed maybe 2 domestic horses, and people will ask me, and I'll do it. I mean, I don't mind, but my passion is the scars.
Mm.
We spend so much time covering our scars and looking pretty and looking perfect and not being vulnerable. And I love the fact that these horses, the beauty in them is their scars in their life.
Yeah.
So
Their authenticity. Like they can't hide. They don't know how to hide. It's just it is what it is.
So we shot these guys, and I mean that in the correct way, not in the hunting sort of a way, but we
Right.
shot these
With a
guys
camera.
as long as we could. Have followed them back down, got in our car, and went. Spent the night. Actually, I got some star pictures that night, stars, and just watched the sunset, and just kind of reflected on being in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming from Tennessee. And we climbed into our tent, went to sleep, and the next morning was another absolutely mind-boggling experience. Do you mind if I go right into that one?
Yeah, let's go.
So we spent the night, and I remember I had to use the restroom. It was about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and I unzipped the tent. The sky was just on fire. It was just red. Those of you that live out there, you know what I'm talking about. Those of us here in the South, we don't have a clue what this. We can't even see the
Yeah,
horizon for the
those
tree.
sunsets on the wide
Yes.
open land. Yeah.
So I went back in, got another maybe hour of sleep, and got up. And when we go out there, we eat dehydrated food, bottled water. All we do is we boil water, put it in the dehydrated food, we eat, and we're gone. I mean, we're talking business. And we had to have some coffee. So I unzipped the tent, and I'm walking towards our SUV, and I open the back hatch. And as I'm doing that, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you just feel a presence. You just know you're not alone.
Yeah.
I was half asleep, and I look to my left, and there's a horse not 30 feet away from me, and he's walking right by my vehicle. And he just turned his head, looked at me, and just kept right on walking. And I looked behind him, and there was another horse. And I'm calling for my wife. I'm like, babe, you got to get out here. Something's going on. And then we noticed horses coming from another direction, and left the hatch open, grabbed my camera. She grabbed her phone, and we just followed these horses up over a hill. And it really shows how stupid we were, and naive to the whole thing. Never paid attention that there were trails that the horses had kind of formed over time. Didn't even notice them, didn't know to notice them. Didn't realize that we spent the night and woke up right next to a watering hole, just over this little hill, not too awfully far. Again, maybe 100, 150 yards away. And when we got up on that hill, there must have been 40 to 50 horses. And we were just locked in. I mean, I was in heaven.
I bet.
There were foals that were sleeping in the morning sun. There were stallions fighting. There were horses coming. You go ahead and show the next pictures. That's what the sky was like. The sun, the morning's bright sun was coming. And this is some of the horses coming in. Go ahead, you can show some. It was just mind-boggling to me to experience and see them in the morning. Maybe do another one. I forget this is a popular picture.
Yeah, I see why.
Just staring at me from a distance. Again, I use a very big lens, and then I crop in. I shoot very high resolution. It allows me to crop in. But this was the morning that we spent, that again, the unpreparedness, not knowing what to expect. I just was taking pictures like a madman and used up my memory card. So I had to swap the memory card, and I used up that memory card.
Yeah.
Not realizing I only had about 150 pictures left on these memory cards for the whole trip that we had coming. So maybe I'll share some more how that ended up, but just had a great time waking up next to a watering hole, not having a clue that we were anywhere near one. So that's how we kind of capture these shots.
It sounds magical, to be going out and looking for wild horses, and then you just almost enter their world and their society and see them interacting.
I'm not a big fantasy magical person believer. I do love was it C.S. Lewis, The Chronicles of Narnia?
Yeah.
I love those stories. Even as an adult, I've read those again and again. And that's really the experience. It was magical. It was absolutely otherworldly to be there with them in their setting.
Yeah, really. I mean, you entered into their world, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you go on to the next picture?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
See what's next?
I hope I'm not boring everybody that's listening.
No, not at all. I think it's so interesting to see the pictures and then hear how you captured them, because, you see the pictures and it's just this moment in time, but to kind of have that backed by the experience and the emotions that came with them.
Yeah, this picture here was taken at Sandwash Basin. We've been able to go to a lot of places. Sometimes we find horses, sometimes we don't. We spent the better part of a day looking for them here. And again, it started getting into the evening time. We were on one of the main roads, and I use the word roads very loosely. They're just ruts.
Yeah.
We found one that took off onto a hill. As we pulled up onto that hill, there were maybe 6 or 7 lone horses out on this plateau just grazing. And so we stopped and started taking pictures of them, not realizing again that down below, I don't know, maybe a quarter mile away, there was a watering hole, and the rest of the herds were making their way up to the plateau. And we're sitting there on the top of the plateau, and all of a sudden see a horse head come over the edge, and then more horses and more horses. And this was a little encounter. These two horses, the stallions, were just kind of, I guess it's a dominance thing with the herd.
Yeah, showboating a little bit.
Yeah, but I just love how the wind was in their mane and they were just looking. So I call this piece Face Off, because they're really going at it. They ended up kicking a little bit, and that was it. It was gone. But that was a neat picture from that night. I think I
Yeah.
have more pictures from that evening also.
That's a great capture. And I agree. Every time if I see my horses out there and the wind blows through their mane, I can just picture them in the wild just so easily. It brings back those feelings of wildness and freedom.
Yeah.
It sounds like you got super lucky finding a lot of them. Have you learned now strategies like to find the horse herds? This
You
sounds like you
know,
stumbled on some ideal places.
it's really just a matter of, I mean, these areas are, like I said, McCulloch Peak's like 120,000
Yeah, they're
acres.
pretty vast.
But you kind of instinctively just, I'll drive, we'll look. If we see something, my wife pulls out the binoculars. We've been in some places in southern Idaho that you can't even get closer. You need like like a side by side or something like that,
Mm.
something really designed for off road to get out to them. So there have been times we've had difficulties with access, but I think that's why we stay with some of the ones that we know, kind of where they'll be. And you never know. There's never a guarantee. So, like I said, even in McCulloch Peak, you'll find them right by the highway sometimes, and other times you've got to really hunt for them because they don't want to be found. But I did learn a trick I'll share with everybody. It's amazing. Again, I'm not real bright, but I stumbled across this. You can go to like Google Earth and
Mm.
find these places. And what
Hmm.
you do is you just find where the watering holes are.
Oh yeah.
And then where the watering holes are, you can generally have a good idea of where they're going to. And even sometimes you can even pick up the trails that they've created. The resolution is so good. It's a lot of
Wow.
luck, it's research, it's memory and just experience, but it's
Yeah. That's really cool. Let's see the next one.
this boy, can I share my heart about this one?
Oh yeah, look at those face markings. How
This
unique and gorgeous.
this is back at McCulloch Peaks, our third or fourth trip. I didn't know at the time this horse's name, but I was captured by the markings on the face. And
Hmm.
this horse's name is Miley. People around there give them names, on Facebook and social media. They kind of identify it. I I don't know exactly how it works, but this particular horse,
I was just gonna ask you who gets the final say.
in some places, I think like the first person to find a colt or a
Yeah.
foal, I don't know what the right word is, colt or foal, but find that little horse, they get to name it. And they generally, I don't know how it works. I
Yeah.
don't,
It becomes known somehow though when people are spotting a particular horse.
but this horse, his name is Miley. And Miley, this particular piece on TikTok, I have hundreds of pictures and I can't name them all. I'm just not that bright. So on TikTok, I'll have a contest. Hey, whoever comes up with the name, I'll give you a free print.
Oh yeah.
And it's fun because people get on and they start, I tell the story. But I want to tell you about Miley, the thing about this, and I love this picture. I don't know about you. We're talking about how we tend to hide our scars and our imperfections. I'm incredibly socially awkward. I just am with people. I can't do small talk. And I will always, 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 if you meet me in person, I will say something inappropriate.
We're like that here too in our house. Like, why did I say that? That was weird.
Yes. But so it makes me maybe sometimes doubt myself or feel a little bit insecure. I can identify with this because this is the thing about a friend of mine on Facebook, Amy Wright. She knows so much about these horses, but she made a post about this picture, and I didn't even realize this. Miley, these markings are kind of unique.
Yeah, I've never seen markings like that before where it's almost a blaze outside of the blaze.
Yeah, I think she called it a
Okay.
badger markings or something like that.
Hmm.
And she Miley, late last year, I think it was maybe 23. I don't remember exactly what it was, but in McCulloch Peaks, they had their first roundup in many, many years. McCulloch Peaks is very active. The people there are very active with the PZP program, where they give the mares a birth control to keep the populations down. And it was time to do a roundup. And so what they did, they didn't use helicopters. They just used a corral, and they call it bait. I guess hay or something, trapped the horses in there. It was still tragic. One young foal got scared and ran into a fence and actually killed that foal.
Yeah.
I mean, there were other things that had happened, but they would capture the horses. And what they did, I think their goal, I don't know what something like 20 horses they needed to take off the range for adoption. And Miley went into the trap, and she was there. And when the BLM guys showed up, one of the things that they try to do is pull out horses that have unique markings or something that can go back into the herd. And because of Miley's odd, different markings, it actually saved her from the roundup. They let her go.
Wow.
When I think about that, I think sometimes with us also, how our oddities or the things that make us different or weird or we think is weird so many times can be the thing that really gives us strength and sets us apart. And we've just got to learn to embrace that. So I have a real special attachment to this picture. But this one, someone on TikTok named this piece is called Meeting Miley. Because she was just looking right at me. She was taking a drink from a watering hole and looked up at me, and you could see the little water drops on her whiskers.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And what's funny is the same thing used to happen to my mother-in-law before she passed away. She would get water on her whiskers from time to time. I'm sorry, that's bad. So anyway.
Yeah, I love that one. And I love that analogy, how it is the things that are weird or different about us that make something worth knowing, worth pursuing. Yes. It's something my husband pushes a lot with my kids. Like you don't want to fit in. You don't want to be average. Like you want to be doing something different from everybody else, because that really is what makes life beautiful and unique, and really where we can give our contributions. So I love that. What a great reminder of that. I just want to hang all these pictures all over my house now. All right.
Heavens. This is a story.
It's a gorgeous one.
Well, thank you. This was just last year in McCulloch Peaks. Again, we live in Nashville, just north of Nashville. And so for us to go out west is great expense. I would give my pictures away if I could, but the sale of the pictures and canvases is what pays for us to go out again.
Life does cost money. Yes. Horses cost money, whether you're going to see them or owning them. Yes.
So we decided on this particular trip, we were going to stay in Powell. We got a really inexpensive hotel. We're kind of getting too old to be sleeping in a tent on the prairie.
That's intense.
So we drove all the way out there. The last couple of years, I don't mean to complain, but the last couple of years, we've really battled the weather. The roads out there, and you know this from where you are, when it rains, it's silt. It's not just mud. It is, you slide, you have no traction. And so we've gone out and spent 5 days and just spent it in Cody waiting for the things to dry out, and then more storms would come off of the Rockies and wet things again. So it's been very lean pickings the last few years. So this particular year, the weather was in our favor. We went out, stumbled across the herd. The sun was not getting too low. Again, like from 4 o'clock, you still got 5-6 hours of sunlight, it seems like. And we came across this herd. There must have been 70 horses. And we just kept our distance, but just observed them. When people approach them, they don't like that and they move on.
Yeah.
They were comfortable. We were just hanging out in this particular picture. And I'll tell you more of the other pictures too like this. But this was just a captured evening with the sun and the clouds. And the clouds are always moving. The sun is lowering and the lighting is changing.
Yeah.
The tragic thing about this picture is this was like our second hour on the range, driving all the way from Nashville. After we took all these shots and the sun went down, we went to the hotel room, and I had my camera backpack. I keep my camera lens in, and the camera and the large lens, probably a total of 7 pounds, fell out of my bag right onto the asphalt
Oh
parking
no.
lot and broke my camera.
Oh
And so
no.
that's all we had. We drove all the way out there for about 2 to 3 hours of shooting. So, but thank goodness I got some great shots while we were there. Um, so anyway, just a little bit that this made this one kind of very exclusive. You can go ahead and go on
Yeah.
to the next one. Same evening. That was earlier in the day, and you can kind of see. I try to. I think of these as portraits. These are horse portraits. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I love the colors and the way you mesh the colors to give it a certain feel.
Well, I really do. Each one is individually edited to maximize the feel that I felt at the time.
Mm.
But you can go ahead and keep going through if you want. This guy, another scarred up
Mm-hmm.
horse.
Yeah. Really battle torn. You can tell just been trucking through life. Feel like, yeah, it's just so significant how much that relates to us. Like living in the wild's not easy, and neither is life sometimes. Like you just keep going and
Well, you know, I've watched some of your podcasts, and people talk about. I mean, they talk about the rehabilitation, the therapy,
mm-hmm.
and I think what's different. I did a show last year. I think it was the Wild Mustang Heritage Foundation or something. They had
Yeah.
a little thing in just south of Nashville in Franklin, and it was a great experience for me. I had my little booth with my pictures, and here you have all these people that have adopted a Mustang, and they have 90 days to train them to get into this competition.
Yeah.
Fascinating to me. I'm sitting there fascinated, thinking that these horses 3 months ago were living somewhere out in west,
Yeah.
and now
It is
here they
incredible.
are. Yeah, they got a saddle and they're working and they're doing things. And these people would come to my booth and see the pictures, and I don't know that they really. Some of them, it was like, oh, they actually did live out in the wild like this. They actually were scarred up like this.
Yeah.
So it was interesting for them to see these horses before they got them. Maybe not the exact same horse, but it was, again, a very moving experience. So that's just what I think of as their life before being adopted. You
Yeah, it
know?
really is interesting and such a huge switch from going just total freedom to, depending on where they end up, some just being regulated in everything they do and still, often being okay with it and creating partnerships and stuff with it.
Well, you don't want to. I don't want to. Again, I don't know a whole lot about horses, but you got your thoroughbreds and your race horses and your quarter horses and all of these working horses that are bred for specific things. And I don't take anything away from that. I mean, that's an art and a science. That's just crazy. But it's amazing how many people who have adopted these Mustangs and they say they're the best horse I've ever owned. I mean, they've taken them out of the wild and they're sure-footed and they're strong and they're intuitive. I think there's something that they've experienced in their short life in the wild that a horse that's just domesticated may not know. It's just a whole nother level of
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. Something I say or talk about a lot is it's just amazing to me that, like, I will go out to my horses and it's like they like to see me. They come to me. They want to be around me. And that's incredible to me because of the lives that they lived before. But there is something with them where they really forge a relationship with you. I mean, without a doubt, there's a relationship that is formed there that is not like I've ever experienced before.
Yep. Yeah. Same evening, you see the sun was getting really low, and
Yeah.
that's my happy place out there with no one around, just a horse.
Yeah. I can see why. Are there any other pictures we've missed that have really great stories that go with them?
I think you've got really the biggest stories there. Let me tell you a story about this. Was a funny one. This isn't so much horse related. Um, but you remember the day I told you I used up my memory cards
Mm-hmm.
and we had still 4 days left. We left and packed up our tent, took off into Cody to try to find a memory card. But Cody is a resort town for Yellowstone, and there were no memory cards anywhere. We
Well,
went
yeah.
on, there was nothing. So I was determined to simply just say, I'm going to have to be very selective, in what I photograph. And so we went out. We didn't really find anything else. We went back to our campsite, set up our tent, and we were sitting there waiting for the sun to set. It's just a weird experience. We were sitting on our little lawn chairs, kind of redneck camping in the West.
Mm-hmm.
I see out in the middle of nowhere, I see this little like Toyota Corolla coming over a hill, kind of bouncing down the
Yeah,
road.
on the ruddy, probably not well-maintained roads.
No, it's like, what in the world is going on here? There is nobody around. And they just keep slowly driving closer and closer to us. And my wife is like, you got to get rid of them. You got to, this is not good. She was concerned, there's no privacy out there. I mean,
Yeah.
you're exposed to everything for miles as someone coming in. And this person finally got up, and I was irritated. I was like, look, you got 120,000 acres, go find
Yeah.
your place.
Right.
And this little old man, probably 10 years older than me, got out of the car, and instantly I'm like, well, he's older. He's got to be okay. And he had a Minnesota license plate, so he had to be a good guy. And he got out. He said, I'm sorry to bother you, but I was just curious. If I've heard I'm on my way to Yellowstone, if there are any wild horses out here. And I was like, well, actually, I said, just over that berm right there is a watering hole, and there's still some horses there. So he took off and grabbed his tripod, and I said, what are you going to do this evening? It's getting late. He said, well, I may go on into Yellowstone, or just may get a hotel in Cody. I said, well, if you need to stay here with us tonight, set up a tent. Oh, my wife was mad. She was so
She's
mad.
like, that is the exact opposite of what I told you to do.
He was a nice guy. I felt bad
Yeah.
for him. And I
Yeah.
said, he said, well, I don't know. So he went over, he photographed the horses, and came back over after my wife was giving me some strong words when he came back over. And he said, well, I think I'm going to move on. And he introduced himself. His name was Virgil. And really nice guy. And, photographers are weird. Photographers are just strange people anyway. They don't want to share their secrets or talk about certain things.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were just chatting, and it dawned on me, and I thought, Virgil, do you have any memory cards with you that you could part with? And he said, I think I do. And he popped his trunk open, he rummaged around, and he had 2 memory cards, brand new, still in the package.
Wow.
And I told him what had happened. And I said, listen, I'll buy them from you. Do you have Venmo or Zelle or anything? He said, no, I don't do any of that. And so he was gracious enough to give them to me. And then what he did, he said, I will send you a letter. I loved it, by letter. I'll send you a letter and tell you how much they cost me, and you can just reimburse me for it. So I said, great. So sure enough, 2 weeks later, I got a letter from Virgil, and he told me how much it was. So I sent him a check. I rounded it up like $5, just
Yeah. For the convenience, they were delivered right to your tent.
better than Amazon.
Yeah.
And so I sent that off, and 2 weeks later, I got a letter back from him with the change. He included the change.
Oh.
I thought, I like this guy. So I call him my Angel Virgil. He saved that trip, because we went on from there into Green Mountain, and you spend that particular trip. I remember one day it was 109 on our car temperature gauge.
Oh boy.
No showers. We were out there and just sleeping in the elements. So we had to get to cooler area. So we went on to Green Mountain horse management area I think it's out by Lander, and got up in the alpine tree level and kind of set up our camp there and cooled down tremendously. But yeah, without my Angel Virgil, I don't know what I would have done on that trip.
Yeah.
But
that's really cool. That's neat how just worked out the way it was meant to, it sounds like.
Yeah, it really, and let me share one other story with you. That since you asked it, I don't really have one of the first 3 horses that we saw with Hickory that we started with. One of the other 2 horses that was with Hickory was a horse, and I've pronounced his name for so long that I still pronounce it wrong, even though people have corrected me. His correct pronunciation is Washaki.
Okay.
I called it Washaki. It's Washaki. And Washaki was a beautiful black and white stallion. I have several pictures of him. And Washaki, Hickory, and Chaco would hang out together all the time. I mean, it was like no matter where you were with a herd, they would show up, because they were three stallions that were just out to have a good time,
Yeah,
and
they're buddies.
they were, it was comical, just different things that we would observe them doing. And Washiki would always cause problems with herds, always getting too close to the mares, and he'd get run off and constantly get stuff. And he was getting older,
Yeah.
and he wouldn't fight. He wouldn't fight. He would just trot off. He
Just
had nothing to prove.
cause a little bit of trouble, rattle things up a little bit.
And it was a fascinating thing to see a horse do this. But he finally, the last year, I think it was in 2023, he finally found a mare with a foal, and
Wow.
he kind of went from this dirty old man to this amazing father figure to this foal, and would not leave their side, would not leave their sight. And my last pictures, sad to say, are not the best ones. But it was with the herd and the three of them together, and Washiki had kind of just settled down into the grandfather father type, and just loved that foal and that mare. And that winter was his last. He didn't survive beyond that. But it was neat to see that he kind of just the difference in their personalities and their ages and how they do things. It was just really fascinating to me, kind of like a little lesson in life, that you're never too old to do things,
Yeah.
settle down and kind of be
Do something
responsible.
new.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but he was so much trouble. In fact, there's a lady that lives out there, and her name is her name has slipped me. She's wonderful. I met her out there. She's very involved in with the BLM, and she's had a huge part in naming a lot of the horses and keeping track of which ones get the. I'm so sorry, I can't remember her name. This is really embarrassing. But I met her on the range once, and we were talking about Washiki, and she said that early on she actually named him Rerun, because he was always, anywhere there was horses, he was there. He would show up. It was like he ran everywhere she went, no matter where it was, he ended up there. And it's just quite a character as a horse. So very energetic and lively. So.
Yeah, that's fun. That's fascinating to just see the way you were able to observe their personalities in the time you spent with them, which is relatively minimal compared to the time they spend out there together. But to see those
And,
interactions and those family dynamics.
and they're so social with each other, the family dynamics. My dad lives in a house not far from us. He's got 5 acres, and everyone in the neighborhood has 5 acres. And so his next door neighbor's got a couple horses. And, those horses, I got to believe, are bored to death. They're out there, they got blankets in the winter and a barn, and they got their food, and they've got their fenced off area, and you just never really see them do much of anything. Even though I know that's not true with all domestic horses, but these in the wild, the family dynamics, the things that go on, it's just sit and observe. It really is. It's fascinating. I think, again, I don't know a whole lot about this stuff. I'm learning. There was a famous saying attributed to, I think, Ben Franklin, and it's probably been attributed to other people. It said that beer is God's proof that he loves us. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of a thing.
Right.
But I'm telling you about all of the things. If you believe in God, if you believe in all of that, which I do, I'm a believer. But of all the things that God has given mankind throughout history, I don't know if there's anything other than his son. I don't know that there's anything that has been more helpful and more important to mankind than the horse. You look through history, wars, exploration, trade, commerce. Without the horse, what would we have done as a human race? I mean, it goes on for thousands of years. So now I believe that horses are proof that God loves us, because
I love that.
he gave us, they're just absolutely amazing. So anyway, I'm just rambling on as an old man.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think it's true. I think you felt it out on the range. I've talked to people where it just seems like there's no doubt these horses were placed in people's lives to help them with the struggles. That's certainly how I feel about mine. I got my Mustang. I had no idea what I was doing. I had 6 little kids when I got her, and was just learning what a Mustang was and about HMAs and how the BLM worked and all of that. And now I really feel like she was just put there as an angel in my life to support me and help me. And, you kind of talked about how different breeds have different strengths and abilities. And I really think that with the Mustangs, one of theirs is and it probably does go back to that social aspect, is that they bring that into our lives. And it's like, as you interact with them, you suddenly get all these insights about yourself. And like, even like you did, just looking at them and observing them, it's like, I can feel this resonate within me, the things that I'm seeing as I look at you. So I love that. I'm going to use that quote from now on because, yeah, I really do think that we're here. That's a big part of what I want to share, like just the programs that are using the Mustangs and the stories I hear and just the feelings that they evoke in people at times when they need it the most is just, I don't know how else to explain it except it's something from the divine, something from our creator who's like, I know life's hard. I want to give you a little help here. And these horses do that so good, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what has it been like changing from kind of living in the normal world, quote unquote, to becoming, where you're chasing wild horses and taking pictures and sharing those on TikTok.
Well, I used to be incredibly boring.
Yeah.
Now I have some excitement in my life. We have our little house here in a subdivision, but to get out there and I put a hat on. I've never worn hats, but I have a little like an Indiana Jones hat, and I like
Yeah.
to pretend I'm him when I'm out there searching for them.
I mean, you got to have them out there. You're going to get burnt if you don't.
Yes, it's especially up in here. You got to really be careful, but it's just weird. It's weird. I think I told you when we talked by phone a few weeks ago that I had a friend 15, 16 years ago, and she had a horse, and she desperately wanted to get into equine therapy, is what she called it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember she's a friend of my wife's. And I remember thinking, yeah, you're just looking for a tax write-off. You're looking to justify, boarding this horse. Yeah, this is a bunch of hooey. In fact, listen, I remember it just came to me, my wife took my granddaughter out there to ride the horse and see the horse. I didn't even go. I didn't even care. It's like, it's just a horse.
Mm.
And that's what gets me about this is I'm a believer. I have seen this and experienced it. And I think if there was one thing that we could do, and listen, I don't mean to speak for anybody, but I wish there was a way that we could educate non-horse people. There's a great opportunity, and it's done. You got your horse magazines and the communities,
Yeah.
but there are people that need to know about this. And I probably need to call that friend of my wife's and apologize to her just
Tell
because
her I get it now. I know what you were talking about.
I get it, and I
Yeah.
want to encourage and help anyone that I can. But we got to get the word out. People have to
Yeah.
be educated. Otherwise, it's just I'm concerned it's going to just die out.
Yeah.
Something.
No, I do too. I mean, there is kind of a fear like what if we just never know what we have and so we don't take care of it the way that we should have because I think I think they're a gift from God, from the creator that's like yes, you got to work, you have the 9 to 5, you got to support families, all those things. But there's another part of life where it's like you need to find yourself. You need to, find your soul and understand yourself a little bit better to navigate this life. And the horses are a really good guide to do that with.
Absolutely.
And you kind of talk about educating. That's what you're doing on TikTok. You said you've come across a lot of people that don't even realize that they're wild horses. How has that experience been?
It's really been crazy because, I don't even know how to, I just made my first TikTok video today. I've been filming them and then my daughter edits them and does all of that.
Oh, nice. That's fun.
And it helps me, but she's getting kind of tired of helping the old man out. I'm kind of having to learn how to do it myself. I didn't think anyone would be remotely interested. And in 3 months, I'm up to 20,000 followers.
That's awesome.
Over 1 million views. The best thing is it's really helped my sales because those sales, I shared this on a video. I'll share it here now. It blew me away. When you hit 10,000 followers on TikTok, you become eligible to be paid for the views. So the video has to be a minute long, a minimum minute long. You make money by people saving it, sharing it, commenting, things like that, things I didn't know. Well, I hit the 10,000 mark and I got the notification. My dates may be a little bit off, but basically my first month from TikTok, I made like $90 just from TikTok. 3 months. I mean, I know you're not free money. But it was, TikTok's going to pay me. I was blown away. And I thought, well, I mean, that's really cool, but what am I going to do with $90? I mean, that's nice,
Yeah.
but
Doesn't pay very far for a trip to
no,
the
no.
Western states.
And I sell my pictures very inexpensively. I sell my 8x10s like for like, I don't know, $16. I mean, they're just
Mhm.
not expensive. Other photographers charge outrageous. I want to get it in people's hands and on their homes. But uh, I rounded it up to $100 and I donated it to a wild horse charity.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because what am I going to do? What 90? It may do nothing for me, but if it can help to control the birth of some mares, that's money well spent. And so I do try to. My sales help, and so TikTok has helped tremendously with that with my sales. So
Yeah.
I have been donating to Friends of a Legacy. It's a nonprofit in Cody, and they work with the McCulloch Peaks horses, and they do some really good work. As this grows, we can try to continue donating to some more nonprofits, a portion of
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that does make a difference. Everybody who's kind of pitching in every different aspect, like that's what's going to keep these horses with us and part of our culture and society. I love that.
Well, if I can talk a little bit, I hope I'm not keeping you too
No,
long.
you're good. I'm good still.
My son here in town for the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years he has 3 coffee shops in town, and roasting coffee beans and selling coffee beans, all this become very, very popular. He's built quite a little business up. And so here in the family, we're in the coffee business, not me directly, but he called me a
Yeah.
couple of weeks ago and he said, do you know you could come up with your own coffee line, and everyone has a line of coffee these days. Just Google it,
Hmm.
everyone. And I thought, that's true. I could call the light roast the Palomino, the medium
Yeah.
roast maybe a sorrel, and Black Beauty for the dark. And I already figured out for the decaf, I'm going to call it all hat, no cattle, just because it's all the flavor but none of the caffeine.
Yeah.
So we're working towards doing that. And
Cool.
I'm thinking we can send the proceeds to the nonprofits to help the horses. So always just trying to find a way to give back and make up for the years that I was a knucklehead and didn't believe in horses. So that's what we're
Yeah.
trying
Well,
trying
I
to do.
love that. And also an opportunity to just, put that idea about horses in another area.
Well, and so I thought, well, we'll include a 4x6 with every bag of coffee. You get a little picture of a wild horse. I can have mugs made with my artwork on
Yeah.
the mug. Anything we do to get it out so people can be
Yeah.
aware of Mustangs.
I think it'd be cool too if you put a little rundown of the story of the horses on the back or something if it's
All of that.
feasible. I love that. I loved hearing the stories of all the different horses and your experience meeting them.
Well, I love telling the stories. Again, I guess I just getting old, but I love to just tell stories, and we have a ton of them from being out there.
Yeah, what a great experience. Do you guys have an area that's your favorite? If you had to pick one that you would go to, which one would you pick?
Sandwash Basin is incredibly beautiful. Again, I said I lived in Bozeman. I'm really a forest guy. I'm a fly fisherman. Put me on a mountain stream with pine trees, and I'm
Mm,
in heaven. I've never looked at the high desert and thought, oh, this is beautiful. But there really is, it really has become beautiful to me. Sandwash Basin has some of the most beautiful horses, and also, but it's just so desolate and so remote. The roads are really, really, really rough to get around on. I love that, but I will probably always have a place in my heart for McCulloch Peaks.
yeah.
We're going to actually call the coffee Whistle Creek Coffee Company, because Whistle Creek is one of the main roads that cuts through
Oh,
the
okay.
HMA, and it's where we saw the first horses.
Yeah. I love that. That's a great name too.
Yeah, it just kind of came together. But McCulloch Peaks is I think what's great about it is a family can go there, and as long you don't have to have 4-wheel drive, but you have to have some clearance.
Yeah.
Where Sandwash Basin, have you been out to that
I haven't.
direction?
I feel like a bit of a slacker because
Yeah,
I've never actually seen the wild horses in the wild.
it's out by Craig, Colorado, and out by Maybell, and there's just nothing. I mean, we did spend one night in Sandwash Basin. Our air mattress is a 2-chamber, 2-sided air mattress, and my wife's side popped, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
she slept, and it was 28 degrees that night in our
Oh,
SUV, so she was not a happy camper. I think that's what
it's
we're
not
saying.
ideal camping conditions.
Yeah, but it's just a long, if you stay out till the sun's down and then you've got to drive an hour, hour and a half to get to a hotel, and then you're not there in the mornings. But both of those places are my favorite. We've been able to go to a few places in Idaho. I want to go all over, but it's all
Yeah.
related to money.
Right. Money, time. Yeah.
And you as an
True.
artist, on one hand, you want to sell and expose people and sell your stuff because that's how you live, and that's you want to raise money for your cause. But you got to be careful because you don't want to sound just like a salesperson, someone
Yeah.
just with an infomercial. But it's kind of got to go both ways. You got to.
Yeah. Yeah, it is hard. I mean, the reality is, yeah, money and all those things are just a part of life that we have to consider whether we're rescuing horses or visiting horses or having our own horses. Do you have advice for other people who might want to do what you're doing? Is it something that, and I guess just maybe a broad answer, are you able to live off of it now? Is it difficult? Is it something you have to have a passion for? It's not going to work. Tell me more about that.
Well, frankly, COVID really caught us by surprise financially.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
When you're making money and you think it's always going to be there, and
Mm-hmm.
as much as I wish I'd been more responsible, just never foresaw anything like that
Yeah.
coming. And it was a challenge. My wife's career has continued and we've recovered from a lot of that, but thank goodness she's still working. I do headshots, I do portraits, and I do some other photography to kind of pay the bills.
Yeah.
But the horses are really just a passion. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a wash. I would love to buy a brand new, more. I still use the old style cameras, the DSLRs. Everything has gone now to a mirrorless type of camera,
Hmm.
and it's crisper and sharper and lighter. And they've been out for 6-7 years now. And I would like to upgrade, but it's just I would have to sell a lot more product to
Yeah.
upgrade. So we're getting by. But you have to do it. I mean, if you have a passion, you want to do it. It's incredibly simple. And I've actually thought about doing some courses for photographers to kind of just,
Oh,
because,
yeah.
I'm a guy that shoots in the studio with strobes. So light is very important to me. How do you get that light at 12 o'clock in the afternoon with the sun blazing down on this? Because you can't wait for the light to be perfect. You have to
Yeah.
shoot them when they're there. You have to photograph them.
Right. They may or may not be there when the light's there.
Yeah. So learning to edit to make them look like the portraits and make them. I've thought about doing that, but again, it's something you got to charge for. And then am I just simply a televangelist selling some sort of
Yeah.
thing on TV that I struggle with that.
Yeah. No, I'm there with you. I still do it all for free, and I'm like, this would be great to make it more sustainable and not keep the other side jobs. But yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky to navigate, but I think you make a good point. If it's something you want to do, you can find a way to do it. That
Yeah.
might be as a side job. You might be able to funnel that into a really profitable opportunity as well.
It's funny how a lot of photographers in that type of photography are older, just older people that got into it that have a nice retirement, and money
Mm,
isn't so much an issue for them. Unfortunately, I'm not there, but other than the older part, but it's but gosh, even if someone doesn't know how to go out with your iPhone, just go out and see these horses and just watch them for a while and get away from your cell phone and the traffic and things and
yeah.
just live out there for a little bit is just, even for a few hours, is amazing.
Yeah, it really is amazing. It's just a different wildness than we experience most other places in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell everybody where they can find you, how they can connect with you, where they can find your art, all those good things.
Well, my website is timwestphotography.com. And if you go there, you'll, again, keep in mind, I'm a headshot and a portrait photographer. So there's a lot of people on my website, but there is a section, I think fine art or wild horse section. You can click on that and look at the pictures. I have an Etsy store, and it's probably Tim West Photography. You would have to search for it.
Yeah. We'll link everything too. So if people
Yeah,
want it, you
perfect.
can look at the episode notes. But if
Thank you.
maybe someone's just listening.
And then TikTok I have Tim West Photographic Art on Facebook. And then my TikTok is Tim West Photography. And there are a lot of Tim Wests out there. I actually have an imposter right now on TikTok.
I mean, you've made it then.
That's what my wife said.
Yeah.
And
Not the best part of making it.
there's nothing you can do about it, really. I mean,
Mm,
I'm still pursuing some things. You just have to live with
really?
it. But mine is just Tim West Photography. There is another one that's Tim West Photography 1. That is not me, even though
Okay.
it's my information.
Yeah. Yeah, that is unfortunate. That's frustrating, all that work and effort.
But thank you for letting me share that information with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to thank you for coming on here and for spreading the word of wild horses. I know that you're reaching audiences in new and exciting ways. And I love that you're kind of targeting the younger audience. I know I was also like, do I want to be on TikTok? But it's a little bit of a different audience.
It is. And, I know that the young people, when they see this, an old guy with a beard, they're just going to keep scrolling. That's not what they're into. And so hopefully one day I'll find a way to reach more of the younger
Yeah.
people.
I mean, they seem to like it. You're getting followers over there. And so
Yeah, it's growing.
yeah, I think it's something that our world needs for sure, is to reconnect with the natural world and
Oh, definitely.
to see, like, look at the incredible things you can do when you put your phone down and go do something, go find something, go chase that passion. And I just love your story that it's, you just took that opportunity to go down the path that seems like life was pointing you towards, pushing you a little bit, encouraging you to follow, and that you're now sharing that with everybody else. So
Well,
yeah, I highly encourage people to check out your art. It's very cool. You definitely get a feel for the wildness of these horses and the beauty of them.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us and learning about horses that heal and the humans who help them. We hope you'll continue with us on this journey. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and follow The Touch of a Mustang on any of the major social media outlets. Please share with your friends, anyone who loves horses, or anyone who might be struggling and could benefit from this message. If you have felt the healing power of horses or help them in their divinely appointed mission, please reach out. We want to hear your story. As we say goodbye, always remember that the horse is always there to help you heal.